awesome. I'm glad. I thank you because that's why I do what I do, to be an inspiration to others. So I'm glad.
Yeah, well, you really are, because well, are you 50 now? Or are you over 50? Was it?
I am tomorrow. I'm going to be 64,
Oh, wow.
and so for my 65th birthday, I've started training. I want to compete one more time to celebrate my 65th.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. So you have pictures of you now. You still training and everything, right?
Well, not like I used to for competition. Competition is way more stringent. So when I came out of competition in 2007, I had done 9 shows in 3 years, and I had made it to the national level.
Uh huh.
But I came out of there really having some food cravings, because the competition diet back then was no fat, non-fat, low fat. So for a middle-aged woman, that's really difficult, because, well, really for anybody, because our bodies need fats to create hormones with. And since I wasn't taking in any fat, I had a little bit of gallbladder distress, and I didn't have the building blocks that my body needed to make hormones. So consequently, coming out of there, I had some really strong cravings for carbs and for fats, and that lasted about 6 months, and then everything kind of calmed down, and I got into some better health. But
Mhm.
yes, I've been working out probably a couple of days a week
Mhm.
for the last few years, but I'm stepping it up now. It's going to
Mhm.
be probably a 5 or 6 day program to get ready for next year.
Right, and you're right about the diet, because I had uh worked out, years ago, and I thought I wanted to compete, so I did, pretty much start off, that way for a while, and I think I was taking so much protein that it was kind of giving me a headache after a while. My body was like, okay, you have too much of this and you not getting this. Your body
Uh-huh.
let you know sometimes. So I had stopped for a while, and then I say, well, let me see exactly, if it's the protein. And then I was okay, and then I stopped on a lot of foods and was taking proteins and this and that, and it started again. I said, okay, I need to back off. My body's not, programmed for all
Right.
that. But yeah, it's really a strict diet. It's really hard on your body, but excuse me, but it looks good. It looks good, but
Mhm.
the things that you have to go through, but
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, it's like, we all need that inspiration. And I have my magazine, OnLive magazine,
Yeah.
and
Right.
in the industry, and pretty much in anything you do, our health matters regardless of what our craft and things are. So it all ties in to me.
Oh, all right.
But we kind of like jumped into it. I'm gonna kind of go backwards and introduce you and things, and then we're gonna pick up where we left off.
All right.
Okay, we kind of started already because the subject got interesting, about working out, things like that. It's all
Mhm.
good. That's the way it's supposed to be. But I am Miss Pantheress, and I just want to say welcome to On Live Magazine. I appreciate you calling, me
Mhm.
calling
Thank
you,
you.
Maxine. And
Thank you.
as I said earlier, you are a good inspiration to females, especially, over 50, because sometimes, we feel like, we can't do it. It's hard, it's complicated, the whole works. And I just want you to tell the audience a little bit about you, how you got into it, pretty much.
Mhm. Sure. Well, I would have to go back to when I was a child. My sister and I, um, were taken from our mom when I was about 4.5 years old, and my sister was 2. Our mom wasn't able to be a good mom, but it turned out good because we got to live with a grandma. Well, my grandma was a nurse, and she had a strong nutrition background, so we grew up watching her cook everything from scratch. And I didn't realize what a blessing that was going to be in the future, because I just thought everybody lived like that. And so we lived with her for about 6 or 7 years, and then moved out and actually went through a really hard time as a teen. I had a drug and alcohol problem from about the time I was 13 until I was 21 years old. And then I had one night a come to Jesus moment, and my life changed, and I haven't been the same since. It took a while to get over some emotional issues and so forth, but by the time I was becoming a mom, things are pretty much straightened out, and I have 3 beautiful boys that I brought into the world, plus I raised a stepson, so I raised 4 boys. But in that time, I was standing in the grocery line one day, and I just happened to pick up what was probably the first Shape Fitness magazine for women, and just flipping through the pages, and I stumbled across an article about Rachel McLish. Now, she had just won the first female bodybuilding, I believe she was the first, if not the first, the second female bodybuilding championship for the International Federation of Bodybuilders at the Olympia. And when I took a look at her body, I went, oh my gosh. Immediately, I felt that I could do that. Up to that point, I had always tried to be skinny, and I just did not have the body type to be skinny. My butt was too big, my legs were too round, and I just couldn't be a Twiggy. But when I saw her, I thought, I can do that. She's not skinny, but she's got curves, and she looks athletic, and she looked just gorgeous. So I bought the magazine, and I took it home, and I drug my husband's weights out of the closet, his old college weights, and I started following the pictures in the magazine and training myself. And then within a short period of time, a ladies' Living Well lady fitness studio opened up in my neighborhood for really, economic prices. So I was able to join that, and I just really hit it hard with the weights. I was so excited. And so the first 2 years, after 2 years of lifting like that, training myself, people started asking me, are you going to compete? And at the time, I had 4 kids at home, and I'm married, and I'm working a full-time job. And I was working a split shift. And I thought, there's no way I could fit in training for competition. And so I put that away, that whole idea away. And then I became an aerobics instructor, and I really stuck hard with that until I opened a business out of my home. It was a sewing business. And then my workouts kind of took not quite so intense, but I was still in the gym quite a bit. And then fast forward, and the kids are growing up, and I went back to college and learned computers, and I got a corporate job. And so a few years passed, and then in May of 2000, my sister died suddenly of a brain aneurysm, and then in the months that followed, my 22-year marriage started falling apart. My whole world just kind of turned upside down. And I found myself single again for the first time in many, many years. And now my kids were grown up and on their own, and now I was not a wife anymore, so I had to figure out who I was. And the day after my divorce was final, June 22nd of 2001, the very next day, the 23rd, I turned 50. So it was really a turning point in a lot of different ways for me. And so it took a couple of years with some counseling just to get my feet back on the ground. And but then, and I was in the gym. That was therapy, part of my therapy, because, in the gym, the battle is easy. It's simple. It's just a war between you and that weight, or you and that exercise equipment. And you win. You show up at the gym and you win. So anyway, I stuck with that, and then people started asking me again if I was getting ready for competition. I was kind of toying with the idea a little bit, and then finally a girlfriend of mine said, will you just do it? You know you won't be happy unless you do. And so I did. I decided to, and that was my first competition was the Ironman bodybuilding competition in Bellevue, Washington. I'm in the Seattle area. And I came in seventh out of 11 girls. Which and it was just thrilling. I couldn't wait. Once I got off stage, I couldn't wait to get ready and do it again. So in 6 months, I got with another trainer, and then somebody who could help me with a presentation on stage. And I went from 7th place to 1st place in about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and that was 2005. I won that one, and then I competed all through 2005, 2006, and halfway through 2007. So that was really one of the best things for me to do, not only physically because it's great for your physique and for your health, but also emotionally to complete or to accomplish something like that. And I knew then that nobody should be able to tell any of us that, oh, you're too old to do this, or oh, you're too old to do that. There is no such thing. It's what you do or don't do in the years that you're given that will determine your real age. So from that point on, I decided that I was going to teach and I was going to train other people, and so I left my corporate job. And I became a personal trainer, and then in 2011, I went back to school to learn nutritional therapy, and so that's what I do now. I train people at their homes. I'm not training in a gym, and then I see people as a nutritional therapist using food and food-based supplements to avoid diagnoses and to keep them away from disease and drugs and surgery. So.
Oh, okay, that's good. I see where you did mention the confusion about GMOs. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I was into that at one time, and I was like, okay, what do I find without GMO products? But I guess what you're saying is a lot of things that's out there that where they're talking about GMOs is not really that bad for you. Am I correct? Or?
Well, I'm not surprised that people think that way, but the truth is, so we want to differentiate between what is hybridization and what is genetic modification. So for as long as we can remember, farmers and scientists and botanists and so forth, and people who practice in animal husbandry, they all know how to mate certain, let's say horses, for instance. They know how to, if they want a certain characteristic out of a horse, they know how to take one horse that has the attributes they're looking for and mate it with another horse that has other attributes, in hopes that in this breeding that they will end up with an animal, with a horse who has the characteristics they're looking for. Same thing with plants and with food. The wheat is a good example. So way back in our great-great-grandparents' day, the wheat that grew back then was a single stalk, a single head of wheat per stalk, if I'm remembering this right. But they thought, well, we can get more yield out of the same acreage if we breed the wheat so that it produces more heads on a stalk. So that's what we have now, and we have wheat that will actually grow 3 heads on one stalk of wheat. Well, part of that is, most of that is good because, yes, you do get a higher yield out of the same acreage, but the downfall to that is that a lot of people now are showing up gluten intolerant because the gluten ratio is either higher or different in some way, and it may be missing some enzymes or some minerals that we need to digest. So a lot of people are showing up now gluten intolerant. That's hybridization, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's what farmers and botanists and animal husbandry people have been doing for hundreds of years. Genetic modification is completely different. Genetic modification is when the scientists in the biotech companies like Monsanto and Dow and some others, they actually go into the seed. And the first GMO food that they tampered with was corn. Right. And they made it so that the corn could withstand heavy spraying of their favorite pesticide, their number one pesticide called Roundup. And they called this corn Roundup Ready corn. So what they like to do is plant all this corn. And mind you now, 2/3 of the growing acreage in the United States is devoted to corn. Right. Because we use corn for so much.
Corn flakes and all that, right?
Yeah, ethanol for gasoline. They use it in feed for cattle on the big commercial CAFO farms. And so, but now they've come up with different kinds of genetically modified foods. It's not only corn, but it's soybeans, sugar beets. What is the other one? Oh, they just did wheat and something else. Well, what they did when they first started genetically modifying, and they wanted to get their okay from the government, George Bush Sr. Visited the Monsanto factory, and of course, not knowing anything about food, he just thought, well, this is a wonderful idea, because all the CEOs from Monsanto were saying, oh, we're going to make this wonderful food, and we're going to feed the world because it's so hardy, we'll get higher yield, and all of this. Well, that was in the late 90s. Tests have shown, and the results are in, that no, we are not getting higher yields. In fact, we're getting fewer yields. And now the allergic reactions, especially in children, have skyrocketed. Some of the allergic reactions are so bad that it requires children to be hospitalized. So, but what they've done in genetically modifying the food is they actually insert genes from other species, even from, for instance, if they want, let's say, they wanted to produce a purple corn for whatever reason. But corn doesn't naturally grow purple. Right. It grows yellow. It grows yellow or white. So they can go and they can actually go and find, let's say, a sea urchin that has the purple color they want, and they can take a gene from the sea urchin and splice it into a corn DNA and come up with a purple corn. Well, that's never been done in nature before. You don't take DNA from a totally separate species and then splice it into a vegetable of a different species. You don't know what kind of results you're going to get. No long-term testing has ever been done on this. And so now with the BT corn, the corn that is injected with pesticides, they've come up with 2 or 3 other ones that actually will produce pesticide after it's been ingested.
Oh, really?
The FDA and the USDA has classified it, actually, it's not as a corn, as a food, but they've had to classify it as a pesticide because it actually produces its own pesticide in the seed and in the plant itself. Well, the big question is it going to do that in our bodies? Nobody knows, because they've never done any testing.
Right.
All they know is that genetically modified foods need to be labeled, and that's the big fight that's going on in the country today. Right. Is that and Monsanto and Dow and all those biotech companies are fighting it tooth and nail. But I think it's going to be like the cigarettes were. You know, the tobacco companies used to fight putting that label on the side of a package of cigarettes. Right. Well, that's all we're asking for. Just label the package of food, whether or not it contains genetically modified ingredients. That's all we want to know, and then we as consumers can make the choice of whether we want to eat that or not. Well, the only time you're going to eat a genetically modified food if it does not say organic on it, or if it does not say GMO free, or a member of the GMOs project. So that's how you can be sure that you're not getting it. If you pick a package of food off the shelf and it does not say GMO free and it does not say organic, you can bet $100 it's got genetically modified ingredients in it.
Yeah, I read that. I read that also because I had seen a demonstration on TV one time years back where they had a bowl of corn flakes and everything. How they were saying that corn is in so many things that we eat, and they said it's just like if you put pour a bowl of cereal and spray it with pesticides. It's like that's what GMO products are, pretty much. And I think one of our stores here in Texas, HEB, supposedly, their brands are mostly GMO free. But when you get off into a lot of it, you can buy a lot of products without GMO, and then something you buy has it already mixed in it. So it's hard to get away from. You buy so many that's not, and then everything that goes with it is.
That's right.
It's complicated. It's complicated,
right.
But
that's why I tell people to learn how to cook. I teach people how to cook. I give up, and to cook from scratch, to eat your food as closely as nature made it as possible. So any carbohydrate, you mentioned cornflakes, that is a carbohydrate that even if it came from organic corn, nevertheless, the processing to turn that into a flake shape, just that processing has done something to the food so that it's no longer as nutritious for us. So instead of eating cornflakes, I tell people just have some oatmeal, organic oatmeal. Or how about some organic yogurt with some nuts thrown in? That's a wonderful breakfast. And our breakfast, we should be getting more protein anyway and not starting our day off with a bowl of cornflakes, a piece of toast, and a glass of orange juice. That's all high carb with very little protein in it. So in the patients that I see, that's a lot of what I see is their blood sugars are all off because they started the day off with a high carb breakfast, and so their blood sugars kind of ping pong all day long, and it's difficult for their bodies to balance that.
Right. Well, that's good to know because it's kind of like the basic American breakfast with toast, orange juice, the whole works, But they always tell you to eat oatmeal, and you're like, okay, why? But so that's good to know. Oatmeal but wheat toast. I mean.
Well, the grains. We as Americans eat way too many grains. We just go there. And so my job, I usually find myself trying to wean people off of grains and onto other things such as squashes or what are some other things? Sweet potatoes and yams and squashes where they're carbohydrate and lots of vegetables and fruit in their whole form instead of fruit juice. Eat the whole fruit. Because there's things in the underneath the peel, the white where the peel comes off. That's rich in vitamin C and bioflavonoids. We need that. And then the skins also provide fiber, and the insides of the fruits provide fiber. So taken all together, our bodies can handle that very well. But as soon as we start extracting things out of its natural form, then that's when we start getting into trouble. So.
Oh, okay. That's really good information. I need to write everything down for me, myself. Because I get on that kick sometime where, I'm trying to do right. And I do pretty much. I don't eat a lot of, fat foods and this and that. I kind of research a lot of things here and there. So I don't work out as much as I used to. So I have to curb my food intake to make up for it pretty much, And I had also read where you were talking about certain products for hot flashes. I know, women try a lot of different things. Now, what works for me is soy milk. I don't know why, but, I researched that years ago. And I think I only went through that like once. And I was like, okay, I didn't like that. So I was doing research. So soy milk, I drink soy milk every day. I did see where some soy products are not good for you and some are, depending on how they grow it, I guess, but I buy the HEB brand and I haven't had hot flashes since that one time, and that was years ago.
Oh, well, let's see, that worked well for you. Most women don't do so well, and we want to make sure that if you are drinking soy milk, that make sure it's organic, because soy is one of the first foods that Monsanto genetically modified.
Right.
So
right.
what soy does in the body, it actually acts like an estrogen in the body. Now, for a lot of women, it also suppresses their thyroids. Mm-hmm. So and I'm seeing a lot of women who are suffering with hypothyroidism. That's a very common complaint for women in their 40s and 50s. Uh-huh. So, but if it's worked well for you and your thyroid is not sluggish, then that it turned out to be a good product for you. So we need to be careful about the levels of estrogen that we're getting in our bodies, because they're also coming from other sources.
Right.
All the plastics that we, like when we eat food that's been sealed in plastic or heated in plastic, or we're drinking water from plastic bottles. There's so much plastic in our environment and in our culture, we don't even think twice about it. But what that's done is it produces what's called xenoestrogens, which the toxins from the plastic act like they have estrogenic effects in our bodies, in everybody's bodies, even in men and little boys. And there is some talk out there that maybe that could be one reason why there's been such a feminization of little boys. And they found it in marine life that there are fish who live around these plastic islands. I don't know if you've heard about these or not, but there's so much plastic trash in our oceans that there are two islands. I believe one of them is just north of the Hawaiian Islands, and I can't remember where the other one is. They can actually be seen from outer space. They're so big. And so the fish and all the particles and all the bits and pieces that are coming from these plastic sources, these plastic lumps of whatever they are, the fish are eating it and reproducing. And now for the last, I think, 20 years, they're finding fish that are asexual. They're not female and they're not male.
Really?
It's actually changing their DNA and how they reproduce. So if it's doing that in marine life, what is it doing to us?
Right.
So I went through my kitchen and I got rid of all the plastic I could possibly get rid of, and I've gone old-fashioned now, and I'm going back to glass just the way my grandma did. Everything was kept in glass, in canning jars. And I won't cook in plastic anymore. I'm about ready to get rid of my microwave. And
the microwave.
Yeah, because that damages the food molecules as well, and just exposes us to more radiation. And that's the last thing we need, is exposure to more radiation. Between computers and cell phones and TVs and cell phone towers, we're getting EMFs, which is another toxin. So one of the things I specialize in is detoxification. Getting people, we're all carrying heavy metals and chemicals, and we all need to detoxify.
Right.
So that's one thing I do, as well as I help people lose weight and exercise.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of things about the microwave, and I had got rid of my microwave for a while, for at least about a year. And my best friend, she was like, when you just gonna get a microwave and just heat it up and and don't waste your time with the oven? I'm like, yeah, well, they say it's not good to use a microwave. Like I said, I research a lot of things, here and there, and sometimes you go back to it because you have a choice, but you try to work around things with life situations, I guess. And we really need to change a lot of things. There's so many things that's bad for us, like you say. The plastic, soybeans, and all that. I'm hoping the one that I'm taking is organic free. It's supposed to be, because I researched HEB soy milk. It's supposed to be organic, but I feel you on all that. I'm trying to work that in, but
yeah. Well, you know how to tell if a food is organic? It will have the USDA organic seal right on it. Not everybody has the right to put that seal on their food. In order to get that seal on their food, the USDA organic seal, they have to spend a lot of money and they have to jump through a lot of hoops. They have to earn that. And that's why organic food is a little more expensive than the subsidized food because it's not subsidized. And so that means the farmer and the food manufacturer need to abide by very strict guidelines in how it's grown, what kind of soil it's grown in, what kind of water they water it with, and then when it's manufactured, if it's a prepared food, let's say, the manufacturer has to make sure that all his equipment that he uses to manufacture that food is all clean of anything that is not organic. It has to be pristine, and they're checked on a lot. So when you see that USDA organic seal on your food, you'll know that it had to go through a lot of strict standards in order to get that on that package. So if your soy milk doesn't have that USDA organic seal on it, then it's not organic, and you don't know what's in it.
Okay. I'm going to double check. I did look it up, the information on it when I first started drinking it because I wanted to find one that was organic, and it was some to where they were saying that, say, for instance, like the vegetables, I know that some of them are marked with numbers that's organic, and, and they were saying that some of the farmers don't like to, that I was running into at one time, I would buy all the organics, and then say I went to go buy maybe a box of macaroni, like the ones you add ground meat and all that too, and then you buy all the organic stuff over here, and then the things that go with it are not.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what do I do now? How am I gonna make this meal?
I know. It takes a little more pre-planning and, like you say, researching. And it's too bad. I mean, we shouldn't have to be this worrisome over simple food that we put in our mouths, but it has become such a fight. And over something as basic as food. If my grandma was alive today, she would be just hitting the roof and she'd be out there marching. That's the kind of person she was.
Right. Have to get rid of the midsection. That's the hardest part to get rid of. That's what a lot of, us females always say, because I guess you don't exercise that part, as much as your other muscles.
There's a little more to it than that. So I'll give you a little rundown on what we go through, especially as women, but men go through this too. So when we're little girls, we make our sex hormones in our adrenal glands. The adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys, and they're not very big. They're only about the size of a walnut, but they are so powerful. And so for the most part, we make our sex hormones in our adrenal glands until we start entering puberty. And then, but little boys and little girls, when they start to enter puberty, it's about close to a 10-year process. That's when the adrenal glands hand that task over to the gonads. For little boys, it's the testes, and for little girls, it's the ovaries. And then for the next 30 or 40 years, our ovaries are making our sex hormones, and we're bearing children, and we're going through all of that. We're having periods, and our hormones are up and down every month until we start going into perimenopause or menopause. So keep in mind that, let's say, 40 years have passed, and 40 years of life. So most of us have been married, we've had children, we've raised children, and all the stresses that go with that. Plus, we've held down jobs, and we haven't had the best diet. Sometimes we just eat on a run, or we eat too many packaged foods and things like that. So consequently, by the time we enter menopause, that task of hormone creation now is getting handed back from the ovaries back to the adrenal glands. But our adrenal glands are already so stressed out from the life that we've been living, it cannot handle one more task, but it'll try. So the adrenal glands get stressed out, and usually I hear women say this all the time in their 40s and 50s. I never used to have this belly. I don't know what happened. I hit menopause and there it went.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the adrenals are stressed, and now they've taken back that task of trying to make hormones to fill in the gap because the ovaries aren't making them anymore.
Right.
And so cortisol is released.
Mm-hmm.
So under that stress, the stress hormone is cortisol, and too much cortisol in the body will collect and cause fat to be collected around our middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's 90% of the problem is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see women like that and I hear that complaint,
mm-hmm.
I'll do an assessment on them, and the first thing that comes up is you have to address, number one is blood sugar regulation, and number two is adrenal health, because if blood sugars are off and your blood sugars are ping-ponging up and down all day long, and you're approaching insulin resistance,
mm-hmm.
which is scary because that's pre-diabetic, mm-hmm. then you have to get that under control, and then you can start working on the adrenals and the thyroid and get that straightened out. And usually when women do that and detoxify, mm-hmm. all of a sudden it's like a switch gets flipped on, and they'll start reaping the benefits of their exercise. Pretty soon the weight will start coming off and their bellies will get a little bit flatter. And if they stay with it, then they will be able to lose a ton of weight. I'm working with a gal right now. Now, this is the second time she's been through this, but mm-hmm. the first time she was diagnosed with, the day that she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it scared the heck out of her, and she called me, mm-hmm. and I had known her from before. Mm-hmm. And so we worked together. We worked together for about 7 months, and she lost 62 pounds, and she felt great. Mm-hmm. Then she had a bunch of family issues come up. Her brother suddenly died. She's taking care of her 90-year-old mom, and the weight came back on, and her sleep patterns went all haywire. So she gained 100 pounds. She gained 100 pounds back, and so now I'm working with her again to get that off. Mm-hmm. But now she's even, each time you do that and you backslide into old patterns and behavior, and you put your body back into that position again, it's tougher. You end up a little worse, and it's a little more difficult to get off. But mm-hmm. you can do it. But I guess all I'm saying is where hormones are concerned and the belly's getting big, that's cortisol and adrenal stress.
Right.
So we have to get those handled.
Wow. I have that wrote down. Exactly. Well, Miss Maxine Johnson, I have enjoyed talking to you. It's been a really good conversation, and I hope we have covered a lot of important issues on nutrition, health, and body. How good our bodies need to be in shape, the importance of it, and the whole works. Because I am in the industry, and a lot of other artists and talent and crafts and so forth that's in the magazine, and everybody needs to kind of take care. On the road, you busy every day, the whole works. Everybody's just busy in their own world, and we have to realize that our body is so important. If we don't take care of that, we can't do anything else.
That's right.
We can't do anything else. But
I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And you have anything else you want to share before we roll out?
Well, just that if any of your listeners or your readers want to contact me, then please contact me, Maxine at templefit.com, or just call me 206-276-3534. I do train people long distance. I've trained people as far away as India, and we would meet on Skype, and I would design meal plans for and exercise programs for. I'm working with another gal in Montreal, Canada right now. Mm-hmm. So, and the same thing, we Skype and keep in touch. She's taking some really good supplements, and she's exercising and eating right. So I do train that way. If anybody wants to get in touch with me for any kind of consultation, then you've got my email and my phone, and I'd be glad to hear from you.
Okay, good.